cloud radiation interaction, right? And we talked that the cloud radiation interaction is one of the very important component for the Earth's climate system, right? Because the feedbacks because of the clouds are still very uncertain, right? Uncertain because we don't understand the clouds fully, properly, right? And therefore, the way it interacts with the radiation, not only the radiation, but other physical processes of the atmosphere are not very clear. And we talked that for the cloud radiation feedback, no, the important parameters that we have to consider are, for example, the cloud water liquid path, okay, the liquid water path of the cloud. And we discussed that the liquid water path of the cloud is the integrated value of the liquid water from bottom to the top, okay, of the cloud. Generally, when we talk about the CLW, also abbreviated as CLW, when we say cloud liquid water path, this is also abbreviated by CLW, cloud liquid water, or sometimes we also say cloud water paths, water paths. I mean, there are many ways we express it. Okay, so or LWP also, liquid water path. I mean, there are the various acronyms used for the same thing: liquid water path, cloud liquid water, and things like that. And as we mentioned last time, that this is actually the integrated value. Okay, suppose if this is your cloud, then this is the depth of the cloud. Let us say this is Z1 and this is Z2. Okay, and let's say this is the depth of the cloud, dz. Okay, then all the water substance inside the clouds, okay, the water substance which are there present inside the clouds, the integrated value of that from bottom of the cloud to the top of the cloud of the QC. This is the specific humidity of the cloud integrated over Z1 to Z2 dz. Okay, generally this is supposed to be the cloud liquid water or liquid water path, cloud liquid water path. Okay, so it is not only, I mean, for the cloud, but the same thing, same definition is also valid for the entire atmosphere. Suppose if this is the Earth's atmosphere, okay, this is the say Earth, and these are the atmospheric layers. Okay, say this is layer 1, this is layer 2, this is layer 3, this is layer 4, and so on. So integrated value from bottom to the top, okay, Z is equal to say 0 to whatever Z is equal to ZT, top of the atmosphere. The integrated value of the, you can say either RH or QV, water vapor mixing ratio, okay, or a specific humidity. The integrated value of that from Z is equal to Z0 to Z is equal to Z2. Okay, this is what is the liquid water path. Okay, so this is one of the important thing that we must calculate or compute when we are trying to find out what is the cloud radiation or interaction, or how the clouds interact with the radiation. All right, so this is one of the important parameter. The other important parameter that we talked last time was the asymmetry factor, okay, the single scattering albedo, and while calculating especially the cloud optical thickness. See, another important thing is the cloud optical thickness that we have discussed last time. Okay, the cloud optical thickness. Okay. So for this cloud optical thickness, because it will depend upon the water substance present inside the cloud, so we try to, and also it will depend upon the size and shape of the hydrometeor contents of the cloud. So we try to relate this cloud optical thickness of the cloud with the, or we can say it is proportional to the W, which is the cloud liquid water path, and also proportional to, inversely proportional to the R, effective radius, something like that. Okay, that we had discussed last time. All right. So this is another important parameter. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and we discussed that the chi, the liquid water, I mean the optical depth is equal to 3 times the liquid water path divided by 2 times the effective radius of the cloud water droplets, right? And we also mentioned last time that another important factor for the cloud radiation interaction is that how much is the cloud amount, right? How much is the cloud amount in different layers of the atmosphere, right? How much is the cloud amount in different layers of the atmosphere? For example, these are the different layers. So, for example, in this layer, how much is the cloud fraction? In this layer, how much is the cloud fraction? In this layer, how much is the cloud fraction, etc., etc. Okay, in all layers, what is the cloud fraction, right? And we try to, from there, we try to estimate how much is the total amount of the low cloud, how much is the total amount of the medium cloud, and how much is the total amount of the high cloud, right? Those things are to be computed. And we also mentioned that we need to know the fraction of the grid box when we're talking about the model, whether it is a regional model or a global model. Then in each grid box of the model, what is the fraction of the grid box which is covered by the cloud, right? That we had also discussed last time, right? For example, if you have a regional model, right? And these are your grid boxes of the model. Okay, whether it is a regional model, say which is just covering the, say, India, say let's say this is Sri Lanka, this is the Southern Peninsula, and so on. So how much fraction of the grid box is covered by the high, low, I mean low, medium, and high clouds? This has to be computed. And from there also we need to know that what is the overlapping, like whether the clouds are distributed randomly within the grid box in different layers of the atmosphere, or whether they are overlapping maximum. We talked about all the things in the last class, and we tried to assume that either it is a random overlap, or it is a maximum overlap, or a mixture of the random maximum overlap. Is how we try to assume, and from there we try to compute the cloud fraction, which is either blocking the entire grid or it is partially uh, blocking the grid. So that is a overlapping assumption that also we talked about. Then we also mentioned that the short wave radiation and the long wave radiation, they interact differently with the clouds, right? And we, in that context, we mentioned that the short wave radiation are mostly reflected by the low clouds. It depends on whether the clouds are low or clouds are high. Okay, and we discussed that the short wave radiation are mostly reflected by the low cloud, or they penetrate the low cloud and reach the ground. Okay, whereas the high clouds, they are trapped by the, I mean, they trap this long wave radiation. Okay, the high clouds trap the long wave radiation. So as a result, the net effect of the low cloud is that it leads to a planetary cooling, whereas the high clouds leads to planetary warming because they trap the radiation, right? So these things we had discussed in the last class. Okay, and in that context, we're talking about one of the very important parameter that we generally try to use to indicate what is the cloud radiative forcing. Okay, what is the cloud radiative forcing? Okay, also abbreviated as CRF, cloud radiative forcing. Okay, and while computing the cloud radiative forcing, we need to know about the solar constant. Solar constant. Have you studied about the solar constant? All of you? Any of you? Have you studied about the solar constant? Do you know what is solar constant? Everybody is silent. Am I audible and visible to
Yes,
all of
sir.
you?
It is the
Sir, the
solar
energy per unit
flux
area.
per unit area in the earth.
Yeah, at the top of the Earth's atmosphere, right? The amount of solar radiation flux. If we try to illustrate in this diagram, say for example, then the solar constant is the total energy, is the total energy, total radiation energy received from the oops, total radiation energy received from the sun per unit of time per unit area on a theoretical surface. Okay, perpendicular to the sun's rays and at the Earth's mean distance from the sun. Okay, so that means this is, let us say, Earth. This is the sun. This is the Earth's atmosphere. Then at the top of the atmosphere, the energy, solar energy, which is received per unit area per unit time, is the solar constant, and its value is generally about 1366 watts per square meter. Okay, the value of the solar constant is 1366 watts per meter square. Okay, so this has to be also known, and this is anyway constant. Okay, for calculation of the cloud radiative forcing. All right, cloud radiative forcing. So, what is cloud radiative forcing? Have you studied about this before? Cloud radiative forcing? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No. Okay. The cloud radiative forcing is defined by this formula. Okay. It is equal to the radiation budget, the total solar radiation in a cloudy atmosphere or cloudy condition minus the total radiation budget in a clear sky condition or cloud free condition. Okay, that is the cloud radiative forcing. That means cloud radiative forcing is the difference between the total solar flux in a cloudy atmosphere minus the total solar flux in the clear atmosphere, cloud free atmosphere. Okay, this is the cloud radiative forcing. Okay, and this is also used as a measure of how much radiation is able to reach the Earth's surface. Okay. The following equation calculates the change in the radiation budget at the top of the atmosphere, TOA. Okay. The difference or change in the radiation at the top of the atmosphere is equal to average radiation minus the radiation in the clear sky. That means average means that means including clouds, because in the real atmosphere clouds will be there somewhere always, right? If you look at the whole globe, whole Earth's atmosphere, clouds will be always there somewhere. Now, even if it is not here in our location, somewhere it is there always, right? Throughout the globe, if you look at. So the average radiation budget in the atmosphere, including the clouds, minus the one which is in the clear sky. That is the difference or change in the radiation budget at the top of the atmosphere. Okay. Now the net cloud radiative effect can be decomposed into long wave and the short wave components. Okay, because that will be different for short and long wave, right? Now we can write the net cloud radiation budget at the top of the atmosphere is the difference between del Q absolute minus del OLR. Okay, this del Q absolute is the, absolute total value of the radiation. That means both for the cloudy and the clear sky minus the OLR is the outgoing long wave radiation. Okay, so this is the change in the radiation budget at the top of the atmosphere. Okay, the first term on the right side is the short wave cloud effect. This is the effect of this short wave radiation on the cloud, short wave radiation, and this is the effect of the long wave radiation, OLR, outgoing long wave radiation. Okay, the second term is the long wave effect. The short wave cloud effect is calculated by delta Q abs equal to S0, where S0 is the solar constant divided by 4 times 1 minus alpha cloudy. Alpha is the albedo. Okay, albedo in the cloudy atmosphere minus the solar constant divided by 4 times 1 minus alpha clear. That means albedo in the clear sky condition. Okay, so this is how we compute the short wave cloud effect. The effect because of the short wave, now we compute. Okay, where S is the solar constant, alpha cloudy is the albedo with clouds, and alpha clear is the albedo on a clear day. The long wave effect is calculated by the following equation. Right? Long wave effect we calculate by delta OLR is equal to minus sigma times to the power 4. Okay, where sigma is the Stevens Boltzmann constant, fourth power of the temperature, right? Minus flux, upward flux in the clear sky condition, upward solar flux in the clear sky condition. So this is the flux because of the outgoing long wave radiation. Okay, where sigma is the Stevens Boltzmann constant, and it is upward flux in clear conditions. Okay, now putting all these equations together, the final equation for the cloud radiative forcing, okay, becomes equal to delta RT at the top of the atmosphere equal to S0 by 4 into 1 minus albedo in the cloudy sky minus 1 minus albedo of the clear sky minus sigma times to the power 4 plus solar flux, upward solar flux in the clear sky condition. Okay, so this is how we compute the cloud radiative forcing. Okay, this one, which is nothing but this one. Okay, this is what is expressed here in terms of the symbols in the equation. Okay, this is the cloud radiative forcing equal to R in the average sky, that means including clouds, and R in the clear sky. Okay, without cloud, and this is equal to this one. Okay, so this is what we use to compute the cloud radiative forcing. This is very important because when we are trying to study the cloud radiation interaction in the global models or in any model, whether regional model or global model, okay, then the cloud radiative forcing we try to compute depending upon what is our objective. For example, we can compute the annual variation of CRF, or we can compute the monthly variation, how it changed from month to month, okay, January to December, or we can compute the seasonal variation, okay, of cloud variation. So all these things indicates us how the CRF is varying from place to place. Okay, where is the maximum high CRF, where is the low CRF, and accordingly we can know that this is where there is maximum heating taking place because of the sun. This is where the least heating taking place because of the sun. This is where there will be warming. This is where there will be cooling, and so on. Okay, we can see in the map of the Earth. Suppose this is your Earth. Okay, this is your India, for example, and all these words. Now we can see that how the CRF is varying from place to place. Okay, and also monthly as well as seasonally. Okay, so this is one of the very important parameters that we generally try to compute in the models. All right. Then after that, of course, about the radiation budget, energy budget, I think you might have seen such kind of diagrams earlier. Have you seen these kind of diagrams earlier in any of your classes? Yeah, you must have seen this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is just like illustration. I mean, there are many such type of diagrams you can find out from the internet, in the Google search. This kind of diagram is illustrating us the Earth's energy budget. Okay, and as you can see, as you might have seen also earlier, suppose this is a incoming solar radiation. Let's say this 100%, and how this is distributed. Okay, how this is decomposed into different parts. For example, out of the total 100% of solar energy, about 51% is absorbed by land and the ocean. Okay, out of the total 100% of the solar energy, about 6% is reflected by the atmosphere. Okay, about 20% is reflected by the clouds. Okay, but 4% is reflected from the Earth's surface, and this is the albedo. As you know, maybe knowing that the global Earth albedo is about 4%, or 3 point something actually. That is the albedo of the Earth, and this is what is reflected by the Earth's surface. Okay, and then about 16% is absorbed in the atmosphere. Out of the 100%, 16% is absorbed. Okay, about 3% is absorbed by the clouds. So see, 20% is reflected by the cloud, and 3% is absorbed by the cloud. All right, and this is all about this short wave. Okay, of the total short wave, 20% is reflected by the cloud, 3% is absorbed by the cloud. Okay, similarly, 16% of this short wave is absorbed by the atmosphere. Okay, now once the Earth atmospheric system absorbs the radiation, like 51% is absorbed by the Earth's surface. So after absorption, will also re-emit, right? So the radiation emitted to the space from clouds and atmosphere is about 64%. Okay, and 6% is directly radiated to space from the Earth, directly radiated. Okay, so about 15% radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere. That is about the short wave again. Okay, so this is how is the Earth's energy budget. Earth's energy budget. Okay, and if you want to, this is all in terms of the percentage. Out of the total 100% of the solar energy, how much is absorbed by the land, how much is absorbed by the atmosphere, how much is absorbed by the clouds in terms of percentage. But if you want to know in terms of the watts per meter square, the same thing you can convert in terms of the watts per meter square. Out of the total energy, like solar constant, as you know, is about 1366 watts per meter square. The energy received at the top of the atmosphere. So out of that, in terms of the watts per meter square, also you can compute. Okay, and this is what is illustrated here in this diagram. Okay, so the incoming solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface is about 340 watts per meter square, out of which 77 watts per meter square is reflected by the clouds and atmosphere. Earlier diagram was showing the radiation in terms of the percentage, and this is showing the radiation in terms of the watts per meter square. Okay, so the total reflected solar radiation by the clouds alone is about 99.9%. Okay, absorbed by the Earth's atmosphere 77.1 watts per meter square. So this is watts per meter square, and so on. Similarly, all these red arrows are showing the amount of radiation, long wave radiation emitted by the Earth's surface and absorbed by the atmosphere and clouds. Okay, all the yellows are the short wave radiation, and all the reds are the long wave radiation. All right, and there are many more things. Of course, you can study yourself later on as you go ahead in the next semester, in the semester. But for now, for this semester, I think this much of information is sufficient about the cloud radiation interaction. And you should know that what is the impact, net impact of this short wave on the by these low clouds, what is the net impact of the long wave on the high clouds, etc. Because these things can come as a question in your examination. Okay, as a short notes or sometimes even as a multiple choice also. These kind of things can come up in the examination question paper, right? So these things you must know and also remember. All right. So I think with this we have almost completed the atmospheric radiation part of the atmospheric physics. Okay, and I think we have taken about 9 to 10 lectures, right? For this atmospheric radiation, we have taken about 9 to 10 lectures so far. We took about 22 lectures for atmospheric thermodynamics. But for this radiation, we have taken about 10 lectures, and we have completed the atmospheric radiation also with this. All right, and this is a very important part of your syllabus. All right, so do you have any question, anybody? Anybody wants to ask any question? Any doubt?
Sir,
Yeah, Vijay.
in rainy days, hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm listening to you. Tell me.
So the
I can hear you.
optical depth is related to the rainy days when we see the cloud in black color, in dark color. Is it related to the phenomenon of optical?
And your question is that in the rainy days, the optical thickness of the cloud, you mean, is related to
The optical depth, is it related
optical
to the darkness of the cloud?
optical depth is related to darkness of the cloud. Actually, by definition, as you know, the optical depth of the cloud depends upon the integrated value of the cloud hydrometeors in the cloud. It depends upon the radius, effective radius of the cloud particles, right? These are the things which physically relate the cloud optical thickness. And what you see as a dark cloud or the bright cloud, that depends upon the position of the clouds relative to the sun's position, right? Bright cloud, that means directly sunlight is getting reflected from the cloud. Dark cloud, that means sunlight is being blocked. So it depends both on the thickness of the cloud as well as the relative position of the cloud with respect to the sun and where you are standing, depending on the observer's position, right? Because cloud anyway is a small, very, very small fraction of the total grid size of the model box, whether it is a grid size you call or total sky. Whatever observer is standing somewhere now. Suppose in this grid box, suppose you are standing here somewhere. You are an observer standing here. All you can see, you will not be able to see even this entire grid box because your view is only the sky about 360 degrees around you, right? A small fraction of the total grid size grid box. So it depends upon where you are standing, where is the sun's position, okay, and where is the cloud, right? So the darkness or brightness of the cloud or darkness will depend upon your relative orientation position, and also of course it will depend upon the integrated value of the cloud liquid path, liquid water. It will also depend upon the effective radius of the cloud droplets, and so that's what the cloud optical thickness will depend on. It's a very important parameter, okay? Very important parameters, and we can estimate these things from the satellite observation, okay? From satellite observation also we can estimate these things depending on which kind of satellite we are using, what kind of sensors are there in that. All right. So I mean, there are a lot of things you can study in this. You can do your minor projects, new projects in this. All right. Vijit, is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question? So I think everybody's silent, so no question, and almost it is 1:25, 27. So I think Dr. Chinmay may be waiting for you. So I have to stop this class. All right. Going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm also going to stop recording. Okay.